Welcome to Rants and Reason. I am Chuck.
I am Karen.
I am a liberal.
And I am a conservative. And as Abraham Lincoln reminds us, we are not enemies, we are friends.
We are friends. And it's Meme Monday.
It is, so let's get to it.
Okay.
So today we have a meme that is referring to Mike Pence. And it has 4 different numbers on it. It's a meme shared from the Proud Snowflake Facebook group. It says, number 1, Mike Pence's brother makes engines for the Russian military. Number 2, the Pence family would make enormous profits by lifting Russian sanctions. Number 3, the company's lobbying firm formerly worked with Mike Flynn and Paul Manafort. Number 4, Paul Manafort was the person who convinced Trump to pick Pence as VP. So, in the research, it appears that this meme is referring to Mike Pence's older brother, Ed Pence. Ed announced that he was retiring from Cummins in 2017 after 36 years in the company. Cummins Inc. is an engine building company, just like Cummins Diesel, that's based out of Indiana. They describe themselves as a global company focused on bringing the right technology solutions at the right time. So, Cummins is involved with infrastructure of hospitals and schools, computer services, tugboats and other vessels, passenger trains, school buses, public transportation, etc. Due to the nature of their business, they have many global partners. And yes, Russia is one of them. But so is Africa, Argentina, Bolivia, Brazil, China, Europe, India, Japan, Korea, Malaysia, Mexico, the Middle East, Paraguay, the Philippines, Singapore, and Uruguay. In fact, Russia doesn't even make the top 10 of the countries that Cummins does business with. Ed Pence started with the company 36 years ago in purchasing. He worked as an account manager for Australia and eventually worked up to being VP of Strategic Initiatives, a position that had him working on generalized company operational structure rather than global contracting. There is no evidence that Ed Pence, quote unquote, made engines for the Russian military.
Not even in his garage?
I don't know about his garage. And, there may have been military contracts at some point somewhere, but it didn't have anything to do with him.
Oh, okay. I've made engines for places before in my garage.
Oh, well, was it the Russian military?
No, it was Bolivia.
Okay, then. Well, number 2, I couldn't find any direct benefit to the Pence family through the lifting of Russian sanctions. In fact, Mike Pence has spoken out many, many times that we need to keep the sanctions in place. So, I don't know, perhaps the fact that Ed Pence works for Cummins and Russia is one of many countries that Cummins works with is what the designer of the meme was going for. But considering the fact that Russia is not one of Cummins' main interests, that's a really, really weak correlation. Number 3, in 2018, Cummins did contribute to Pence's campaign, as did Eli Lilly and Company, a pharmaceutical company, and they're both based out of Indiana. So, in fact, both were top contributors for him, but again, they were Indiana businesses. So, as far as lobbying goes, the companies lobbied for typical legislation that would benefit their interests, and both companies donated to both Republicans and Democrats. Eli Lilly spent about $100,000 more towards Republicans, and Cummins, the engine company where Pence's brother worked, they spent about $20,000 more on Republicans than Democrats, which is nothing in terms of lobbying. As far as the lobbying claim goes, the closest connection that I could find was possibly at one point in the past 5 years, Cummins hired a lobby firm with one employee that may have worked with Paul Manafort in 1996. So.
Sounds shady to me.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like it's very, very weak tea is what it sounds like. Eli and Lilly do have some definite Russian connections, but they are a global company and they had a vested interest in selling insulin in Russia. But that had absolutely nothing to do with Mike Pence specifically.
And it should be noted here that those are 2 of the largest employers in Indiana.
Right. So, of course, they're going to have they're going to have some influence with the governor. Right. Mm-hmm. Number 4, many reports do indicate that Paul Manafort did influence President Trump's final decision on VP. But, I mean, really, it was probably way more political strategy than it was to advance his own interests regarding Russia.
Well, Pence brought huge donors with him.
Right.
And what else did he bring with him?
The religious right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, he was a 2-for-1 there.
Right. And the other candidate that Trump was going to pick, according to all the articles, was Chris Christie. So it's altogether possible that Manafort just was like, no, Pence is a way better strategical decision here. The people who don't want to vote for Trump might vote for him if Pence is attached, whereas Christie's kind of cut from the same cloth. And what a lot of the religious right didn't like about Trump, they wouldn't like about Christie. So it was way more of a political strategy than it was anything else.
Yeah, my son Logan would have been a better pick than Christie.
Well, at that point, I mean, Christie had just been seen on the beach that he had shut down. I mean, there was just so much.
You know what? I don't even want to think about those pictures. He just did that.
But so to recap, Pence's brother did not make engines for the Russian military. There is no evidence that Pence's family would benefit from lifting sanctions. There are some weak lobbying connections, and Manafort did advocate for Pence. So I'm going to rate this meme mostly false. There's a little bit of truth in it, but the truth is definitely taken out of context.
Yeah, Pence has done a lot of shady stuff, but not that stuff.
Well, right. And there may be some shady stuff involved with it, but it's not something that is easily found. I mean, I did a lot of research, and this was the best that I could find. So
yeah. So we're rating it as?
Mostly false.
Okay. The next one is about Paul Ryan, and it was sent to me by someone who does not even listen to the show.
Okay, then.
So it was sent to me by Renee.
Who does listen to the show sometimes.
No, she does.
She listens to the Meme Mondays because they're short.
Yeah, she has a short attention span. Now, my prediction on this was that it was 50% true.
Okay.
Now, this meme shows Paul Ryan, and it states, Paul Ryan entered Congress in 1999 with a net worth of $392,000 and left valued at over $6 million. But people on Social Security are the problem.
Mm-hmm.
So now the reference to his wealth implies that he used his position as a member of Congress to become a multimillionaire. His total salary over 20 years, including his time as Speaker, would amount to roughly $3.4 million. So he must be corrupt. Not necessarily. Ryan made his money the old-fashioned way. He married into it. So in 2000, Ryan married Jana Little, a successful tax attorney and lobbyist who comes from a wealthy family that, ironically, are prominent Democrats in Oklahoma.
Huh. So they must not be able to do math either.
They can't do math, but they can cook the heck out of some meth. So,
oh, gosh. Now you're going to get us in trouble. No, don't do that.
Is it time for a disclaimer?
Disclaimer. We know nothing. You've been disclaimed.
You've been disclaimed. That was a joke. Okay. Now, after her mother died, Jana inherited a blind trust worth between $1 and $5 million. Now, Ryan has also done pretty well with investments. He owns Apple, GE, Home Depot, ExxonMobil, and Google stock. Now, there were some rumors that he benefited from insider trading during the financial crisis. A trust that he was a member of sold stock in troubled banks the day before the banks collapsed.
Okay.
Now, that sounds shady. Now, however, he was only part of this trust that sold these stocks.
Mm-hmm.
He had no power to make trades, and there was no evidence found, because they did look into it, that he used any information that he had.
Mm-hmm.
The most compelling evidence that he was not guilty was that he gained this quote-unquote insider information at a meeting that occurred after the trades were made.
Oh, okay. So he got in a time machine and then went back a day. Is that what happened? He was
a little Weasley Doctor Who posting selfies from inside the time machine.
I see. Okay. Gotcha. All right.
Now, as for Social Security reform, he has been one of the more outspoken members of Congress on entitlement reform, saying that the continuing costs were unsustainable. He spoke quite a bit of the need to reform or even privatize the system during the 2018 budget talks. But when the budget was passed, no cuts were made. Now, many economists agree with him. More people are collecting than paying into the system.
Right.
But basically what we have is a math problem there, which is going to cause the program to become insolvent in 2034 by most estimates. But that being said, he has never put legislation on the floor or introduced a plan to cut benefits to recipients. So I'm going to rate this false, as much as I would like to find something wrong with the little Eddie Munster weasel that I hold in disdain, but I'm going to find it false. These things just aren't true. Just because you want them to be true doesn't mean that they're true.
Right, right. And I mean, the first fallacy that comes out at me is the fact that using Social Security, I mean, that's like an appeal to emotion, right?
Well, it's a big appeal to emotion when he said the people on SSI were the problem. He's never said the people on SSI are the problem. He said SSI and the entitlements are a problem.
The system itself is a problem, not the people. And the way the meme was worded changed it to give it an appeal to emotion. Right.
He's still a little weasel.
Okay, some of the other fallacies were ad populum, or the bandwagon appeal. This is an appeal that presents what most people or a group of people think in order to persuade one to think the same way, which you just illustrated with the fact that you think he's a weasel, you think he's corrupt, so therefore you see this and you're automatically going to think it's true because it appeals to something that people already think about him.
Well, I don't think he's corrupt. I just think he's a little weasel.
Okay, well, but there are a lot of people who think all politicians are corrupt. So they see a meme like this and they automatically assume it's true. Yeah. Okay.
And actually, let me throw something in. He is not at the high end of congressmen when it comes to wealth.
No, he's not.
34 others, according to the Center for Responsive Politics or something.
Yeah, I was looking up that and Open Secrets. And yeah, I mean, there's a lot of information that's put out there regarding legislators that isn't true. And it's pretty easy to find out where their wealth comes from because they have to fill out the disclosure forms. So it's pretty interesting. The other fallacy that we're looking at with both memes is false cause. This fallacy establishes a cause and effect relationship that doesn't exist.
Yes.
Right.
And we have the non sequitur. His earnings and Social Security, one has nothing to do with the other.
Right. The fact that Ed Pence works for Cummins has nothing to do with Mike Pence.
Right. And in the Pence meme, you have the red herring. This is a diversionary tactic that avoids the key issues, often by avoiding opposing arguments rather than addressing them. And that is all we have to say about that.
Yep.
We would like to thank everyone who takes time to listen to us. You can find us on Podbean, Stitcher, and iTunes. We would also appreciate you dropping us a positive review.
You can also follow us on Twitter at Rants Reason, and we appreciate all of our Patreon supporters. You can find us on Patreon as Rants and Reason.
Thanks
for listening.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.